Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one.
Namo saranto sucedoye olavadi samya sambuddhoshe.
Namo satanto sucedoye arahati samya sambuddhoshe.
无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. 师父上人，各位师兄，阿弥陀佛, Venerable Master, Dharma friends, good afternoon. Welcome to our Sutra lecture. It is Sunday, October 12th here in the Gold Coast of Queensland. My name is Heng. It's a Saturday night back in Berkeley, California, 7:30 p.m. Welcome, glad you're here. We're going to be exploring the conclusion of Sudana's, the pilgrim Sudana's encounter with a teacher named Elder Liberation. That story winds up today, so we're going to get the goodbye and talk about some of the things that happened to him during this exposure to the Dharma. All right? So let's get going with a invocation. We would like to respectfully acknowledge the Kombumerri people, the Ugambe language region, as traditional storytellers and custodians of the land where our monastery is located. We pay respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and to all First Nations people whose sovereignty was never ceded. Okay, that's how it's said in English. In Chinese, it goes like this. 我们恭敬地承认与冈贝语族的孔布马里人是我们寺院所在地的传统叙事者和守护人，他们是讲故事的最古老的故事。我们向过去、现在和未来的长者们致敬，并且向所有从来没有放弃主权的第一民族的原住民致敬。Okay. Bell sound wide resounds throughout 100 million worlds. The Buddha's law is heard and spread all throughout the triple world. The wondrous sounds that everywhere fill the Dharma realm with peace. May those who hear it gain the strength to follow in faith the Buddha's path. 众生传3000劫内，佛法扬往一国中，共训其法界和平，以报他的护德。Right. So, welcome again, everyone. Last week we talked a little bit at the start about some of the challenges of bringing a traditional lecture format into the 21st century, and people's attention spans have decreased. But the need for the Dharma has not. We need it more than ever before. So the answer is to make the lecture a little more lively so that people are happy to sit and listen. One of the things that we're going to do is invite folks to ask questions, for sure. And as the, let's see, what does it say? 本课程有问答环节. Oh, look at that. 欢迎大家将问题打在那个对话箱对话库义工师兄会收集整理和法师过目. So it says anybody who's got a question, ideally about Buddha Dharma, about the Sutra, about cultivation, those are things that I'm happy to discuss and have an opinion about. So the Q&A session is alive, and we hope that you will put your questions into the chat box, and our volunteers will record your questions, translate them if needed, pass them on. All right. Something else we're going to do is in our translation work that we do every week, we've run up over and over and over, run up against a series of questions, a series of Buddhist terminology that are hard to translate. Why are they hard to translate? It's because the topic itself is deep, or because it's broad. Deep meaning we don't get it. It's a Buddha level topic, a Buddha level principle that you require real, genuine wisdom to see how to present it. That's one. Or number two, it's broad, meaning it's got multiple meanings. And if you get it shaded over here, you've misinterpreted it. If you shade it over here, you've misinterpreted it. So how to get a good English Western culture term to cover it, right? So we're going to be talking about that. That's going to be a part of every week. Give you an example. There's a Chinese Buddhist term called zizai, Ishvara in Sanskrit. And we've translated that 4 different ways over the years. Master Hua actually chimed in. Shifu gave us an English translation. He said, it means comfort. We said, but comfort, Shifu? Comfort often just means the body in the West. And he says, no, you don't understand. So that's to give you a teaser. So that was one time when we took a word that Shifu gave us and actually said, we're still work with it. Let's work a little further. So fascinating. We're going to keep our list. Top 10. Top 10 tough terms, right? Dharma terms that are hard to explain. Then I thought we would also spend some time with each lecture just talking about shop talk, Buddhist chat time. What's going on in the Dharma realm? What's happening this week? What have we seen this month? What's going on here in the monastery? What does it look like from the Buddhist point of view about things in the world? Stuff like that. So we're going to, and also music. So we'll keep our songs moving. That's what I had in mind, to keep everybody awake and alert and interested in not just the sutra. The sutra is incredible, and having it in English is a gift, but sutra and beyond. All right. Speaking of which, here it is right here. So our teacher, Elder Liberation, saying goodbye. Here we go. I'll give you a line, you give it back to me. 善男子 我位于此，如来无碍庄严解脱门，而得入出。Okay, here we go. In English, read it together. Good man, I can only enter into and come out of this gate of liberation, named thus come one's unobstructed adornments. Okay, I'm going to copy this one right here and put this on our list. We're going to collect these terms. Here it is. Not that one. The other one. There we go. Right there. Top 10 Buddhist phrases. Adornment is one of those. And get the Chinese. Zhuangyan, right there. We'll get the romanization too. Okay, that's a top 10 term, because I personally don't think it means adornments the way the English word means to adorn, which means often externals, kind of like decorating, right? Interior decorating. I think it's way more than that. Okay. Save. Okay, that's one. We'll be back. We'll come back. So, Elder Liberation says, Sudana, good male child. That's what the literal meaning is. So, son of good family, people translate it that way. Good man, good woman, disciples of the Buddha. There, disciple of the Buddha. Gender non-specific. I only, with regard to this, I alone, with regard to this, comma, Rulai, Tathagata's Wu'ai, no obstruction, Zhuangyan, creation, Jietuo, liberation, door, mun, comma, can go through and return. All right? That's a word-by-word translation. Let's run through it again. What is he saying? He's saying, Sudana, I've told you everything I want you to know about the way that I got enlightened. I only know this one, he says. All I know is this, how to go through and return this gateway to liberation, and then he gives it a name. It's called what a name? Tathagata's unobstructed creation, liberation door, okay? So all these teachers, all 53 teachers have their Jietuomen, their liberation gateway, how they got free, how they ended suffering. This is the door that I went through. On that side, I was miserable. On this side, suffering's over. and it's called the Tathagata's Unobstructed Drangyen. Does Drangyen mean decorations? The Tathagata's Unobstructed Decoration makes no sense to me. It's Drangyen here means something much more like creation, like the book of Genesis. On the first day, God looked out upon the waters, right? So that's, I think, what's going on here. And you do it, how do you do it? You make a Pure Land through dedicating merit. We go, may every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light. We dedicate the merit, we're building a place. That's part of the Mahayana. So he's saying, Sudana, that's all I know. I've given you my special sauce. This is my gift to you, he's saying. Okay, so far so good. Now, when we get to this part of every one of the 53, they do the same thing. There's a pattern happening here. And they say, I only know this. However, I want you to become a Buddha, so go south. There's a teacher waiting for you who knows more than I do. Okay? Now, let's look at the text first, then I want to talk about it. Because I think that act is really, it shows the heart of the Bodhisattva and the heart of the Mahayana. Okay, we've got this whole, let's see here, it's a long paragraph. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, there's always 10 in the Avatamsaka. He says, should we do the whole thing? Let's run down the whole thing, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, are we ready? Here we go. Ru zhu pusa moho sa, de wu ai zhi, zhi wu ai heng, de chang jian yi qie fo san mei, de bu zhu nie pan ji san mei, 了达三昧普门境界，与三世法悉皆平等。Okay. 能善分 Let's see one more time. 能善分身遍一切刹，遍一切刹，住于诸佛平等境界。 十方境界皆悉现前，智慧观察无不明了。语气深中，悉现一切世界成坏，而欲己身，即住世界。 不生二想. Okay, that's the 10. Here we go. The conclusion is, 如是妙行，而我云何，能知能说. Okay, that's the whole pattern of his humility as he sends him off. And this, like I say, this repeats over and over with every teacher. They say goodbye and they say, what? Done. He says, please read with me. You're welcome. Here we go. But as to how all bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, attain unobstructed wisdom, abide in unobstructed practices, always see the Buddha's samadhis, attain the samadhi of not resting in ultimate nirvana, understand the samadhi state of the universal gate, remain totally impartial towards the dharmas of the 3 periods of time, skillfully send out division bodies that fill all kshetras, rest in the Buddha's state of impartiality, watch the states of the 10 directions appear before them, contemplate with wisdom and understand absolutely everything, show the formation and decay of the worlds within their bodies, yet do not entertain thoughts of duality between their bodies and those worlds, how can I possibly know of or speak about such wondrous practices? Okay. So isn't this funny? He's just, our teacher, Elder Liberation, has just given Sudana the keys to the kingdom. He's just explained this incredibly marvelous state where Buddhas appear inside his body and he can see everything about them. Everything they've done in past lives, even to the point of the troubles they had. It specifies falling asleep in meditation, the problem of drowsiness. It talks about their names that they had in this lifetime, the things they ate. He can see all these things. And then further, the marvelous, those are the ordinary things, the marvelous things, how they came out of the Tushita heaven, came down and vanquished demons before they became Buddhas. He sees all these things just as clear as an apple in the palm of his hand. And so Sudana has just been, amazing. And now he's turning it over and he's saying, but I don't know anything about X, Y, and Z. I can't teach you those things, so you have to go to the next teacher, he's saying. Isn't that interesting how they do this every time? Okay, what are the things he says that he doesn't know that bodhisattvas know? How all bodhisattvas, there's a list of 10, get unobstructed wisdom, okay? Wisdom that knows everything. Abide in unobstructed practices. No matter what difficult practice they pick up, they can accomplish it. They always see the Buddha's samadhis. Yeah. How sublime that would be, to see what Buddhas are doing and know what it is. For example, look at this one. Attain the samadhi of not resting in ultimate nirvana. Okay, full stop here. This is the Mahayana. This is our school. Buddhas don't stay in nirvana. How about that? Who says that? Who in the Buddhist world says Buddhists come back out of nirvana? The Avatamsaka Sutra does. Isn't that interesting? That Buddhas, now they can stay totally in ultimate nirvana, and that's it. But in the Mahayana tradition, the way our school talks about it, Buddhas already ending birth and death and realized every bit of ignorance is removed and transformed in their mind. But they look at living beings and they say, how can I stay here? I've got to get involved. I have to come back out and go to work to teach living beings. I can't rest. Isn't that interesting? Just that by itself. I know there are Buddhists in the world who would say, no, come on, nirvana, that's it. Mahaparinirvana, that's the end. Well, can be, but is not necessarily. Because here are bodhisattvas. Name one who did this. How about Guanyin Bodhisattva? Guanxin Pusa is said to be the very one who entered nirvana. Zheng Faming Rulai was her name. And she looked out and said, nope, I'm going to return as a female and do the work that needs doing, because living beings are really, they need it. We need you, Guanyin Pusa. So, yeah. Okay, how interesting. Number 4, let's see here. We had 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's 5. Understand the samadhi state of the universal gate. That's the name of the chapter in the Lotus Sutra about Guanyin, Pu Manpin, Universal Gateway. Remain totally impartial towards the dharmas of the 3 periods of time. I guess, why would that be important? Why would you prefer the past, prefer the future? Impartial to, maybe that's not the right translation. Let's take a look here. 与善是法，悉皆平等. Maybe the emphasis is on the dharmas of the 3 periods of time. So if you were impartial about the past, present, and future, you could move between them. You could show up in the past and tell Emperor Nero to put his fiddle down and stop collecting all the taxes from the poor Romans. And you would go to Genghis Khan and say, hey, why don't you try eating less yak meat? Try being a vegetarian for a while. It'll improve your temper. You won't have to slaughter half of the world. So you go back to, where would you go? You'd go to the navigator of the Titanic and say, hey, you know what? Steer about 6 feet to the left, and you'll make it all the way to New York. So, would you prefer the past? What would you do if you could move equally between past, present, and future? So, skillfully send out division bodies that fill all kshetras. Okay, this is Mahayana Bodhisattva magic. Nung Shan, Fun Shen, able to be skillful at dividing up your body. Nung Shan, to be good at making division bodies, which Bien, Ichecha, which go everywhere throughout all the worlds. What's a division body? So here's our Mahayana. And I tell you, our religion, now don't argue about whether it's a religion or not. Our teaching, our school, there we go. Our teaching, if I say our tradition, has one aspect of it that is just amazing, which is the 3 bodies of the Buddha. The Sanshan Daoli, Sanshan Da. Now, 3 Bodies is also the name of a contemporary Chinese novel, science fiction novel, hugely successful, and also a Netflix TV series that was also hugely successful. Sanshan is called 3 Bodies. Where did that come from? Well, it's part of Buddhist teaching that says when you become a Buddha, when your wisdom appears because the ignorance has been transformed, you have a Dharma body, a reward body, and division bodies, transformed bodies. And you can do it. You move between the 3 of them. And all of them are miraculous, but it's that 3rd one, the ability to, from your body, from your mind, send out bodies that function to teach, perfectly tuned to become your neighbor's next best friend and guide them towards their own awakening. Amin, right? Think of that. Think of that. We are so stuck on the bodies we have. We look in the mirror and tweeze our eyebrows, and some people slather orange makeup on their faces. So we're really attached to the appearance of the one body we have. Buddhas, now, why is this so amazing? The teaching says this comes right out of our nature. It doesn't come from anywhere else. Inside us, we know how to do this, but very few people put in the work to get to that place. But what an interesting concept that you could make from your body countless transformed bodies that go out autonomously to teach, each according to the need. Yeah, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. Just a word to the wise. Once we start talking about bodies, if we want to explore that, a really good thing to do is not to kill other bodies to nourish your body, hoping to be able to transform your body. So if we can keep our one flesh body alive in a harmless way, through the thought of ahimsa, of kindness, just in a simple, it's the golden rule. It's not far out. It's that I wouldn't like to be eaten, so I don't want to eat others. I make the connection. I definitely see in the eyes of the birds that I feed and the possums and the animals that I feed, there is this recognition at a certain point of they could get that fear look and fly away suddenly, and they don't. And I take it as a victory every single day when the animals that come close to me are not afraid of me. Because they survive largely by speed, by escaping. They don't have a lot of weapons. with their own. Maybe claws and a beak, but it's mostly by running away, and that depends on that fear flight response. And when I don't trigger it, and they accept me as somebody harmless, I think I've done something significant. It's the absence of fear-making with my life that I want to create. I want to generate no fear as I go through the world. So you can see it. It's in the eyes of the birds. If I were, when I'm coming close to a bird, if I suddenly move my hand, that's all it takes. Gone. Before your eyes can focus, they have left. They have taken wing and flown away. So you have to know how to the speed with which to move. And because our monastery is on a flyway, wild birds in flocks fly overhead. And I'm thinking of cockatoos in particular, and among others. And they're among the flock. There are always one or two who are here for the first time, and they are afraid because they have no idea what I'm there doing. And it's the old ones, the ones who come back, who live long. We have one elder boss cockatoo who must be 20 some years old. Name is Dexter. And Dexter shows up, and he struts down the railing and stands outside my door and goes, "Rah! I'm here. Is it lunch? It's lunch. Feed me now." He's very confident that when he makes that sound, I'm going to come out and feed him. I usually do. So you can see this notion of division bodies, right? How do you, if you want to get close to being able to send out three different bodies, the Dharma body, the reward body, and the division bodies, one way to do it, one way to move in that direction, is to make sure that this one body that we have, we're not using it to terrify others. We're not using it to scare other beings or to consume them, right? So that obstacle will disappear. Okay, what else? Rest in the Buddha's state of impartiality. How does this go? 住于诸佛平等境界. Okay, here, ready? State. That's another one of our words for our list. Here we go. Notes. Okay. 境界, states. We'll type it using that same font. States. It's 境界. This is one of those words that is a challenge to translate. Okay, 境界, and there we go. We're getting our list. Here we go. There we go. Okay, states. So, the Buddha's state of impartiality. Why is the Buddha pingdam? This word is, it's a big one whenever there's a Chan meditation session. We would be sitting at Gold Mountain Monastery in a Chan session or at City of 10,000 Buddhas. And Master Hua would say, Who's got some sort of state? What sort of state is happening? Tell me about what's going on. And somebody would say, Shivo, my body's really, really hot when I meditate. So I've been taking off my clothes, as many as I can. And Shifu would say, it's just a state. Pay no attention to it. Right? And then, okay, Shifu. And then somebody say, what else? I've been feeling really, really, really cold, Shifu. I've been piling blankets on when I meditate because I'm freezing the longer I sit. Shifu would say, it's just a state. Pay no attention to it. And he would say, sometimes I know people when they meditate, their bodies just puff up. They just feel like they fill the universe. Other times when you're meditating, it just feels like your body disappears into a tiny mote of dust, right? Anybody have that state? some people would look around and of course, they want to be known as somebody who's got a state. So, yeah, I do, sure. And he would say, pay no attention to it. States in meditation are just like the weather. It's always one way or the other. He would say, what is the Buddha's state? We don't. What is the Buddha's state? Sure, who's going to tell us what's the Buddha's state? The Buddha's state is no state, he said. The Buddha's mind is unobstructed. All states are the Buddha's state. He doesn't prefer any state. He doesn't hate and want to get rid of any state. So, this is how Shifu would talk. And of course, we were thinking, what's a state? Well, the Chinese word that he would use is 境界, 就是个境界. 不要只说境界. So a 境界, it's a challenge to translate because we've got some equivalents in the West, like state of mind, we say, or state of being, or in German, Gestalt, or existential situation, something like that. So the finding the right English equivalent is kind of a challenge. State is short, it's brief, but does that cover it? So state also can mean like the state of anarchy or a state of Mississippi and Alabama and Louisiana, different states, states of Queensland and New South Wales. So it's got some drawbacks as state. But Master Hua would specify, he would go into detail, and he would say things like this. He would say, when we meditate, what's happening is our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. And then if you want to divide the mind, it's the consciousnesses within the mind are put under pressure. And we take our breath, our qi, our essence, our jing, and our spirit, shen, and we compress them into a Dharma form, into a mold, a Dharma mold. And when you do that over time, what happens is pressure and heat build up. Literally heat. It gets hot when you meditate. That's when it feels really hot. And then, because we're working directly with the earth, air, fire, and water of our body, sometimes the temperature can feel cold. Sometimes it can expand. Sometimes it can contract. He said, all of this is the interaction between the Dharma and the stuff of our, actual stuff of our lives. So it's all in transition. And when you do it over time, what you develop is called Sanmei Zhenhuo, the true fire of samadhi. And he said, over time, where do you think dhyana comes from? The first, second, third, and fourth dhyanas that feel so pleasurable. He said, that's exactly where it comes from. But what's the key? You have to be patient with states, he would say. And he would pick out just the way our phrase here is impartiality, the Buddha's impartiality. Rest in the Buddha's state of impartiality. Well, rest in the Buddha's impartiality towards all states. Pleasant states, unpleasant states. Shifu would go on. He would say, now, because you're all beginners, he would say, you're just worrying about pain. You have to be patient with pain in the knees. You have to be patient with boredom, with the body jumping around on the meditation cushion, with the body being torpid, falling asleep all the time. These are all jingjie, states. You have to be patient with them. Over time, what happens inside the body is these work their way through, and the qi finds new channels to move in, and you feel very, very comfortable. He would say, but when you open the Shurangama Sutra and you read the 50 skandha demon states, Same states. You learn that you can't be happy when the Buddhas come to rub the crown of your head and praise you and say you're going to be a Buddha. You can't be happy and like that state. When the demons come and they scold you and they say they're going to hack you from limb, they're going to eat your muscles and drink your blood, you can't be afraid. He said, when you get to a state where up is not up any longer, down is not down, true and false switch positions, you can't think you're going crazy. It's just a state. Then he would say, not easy, is it? Yeah, that's why there are so few Buddhas. But this is the path you have to walk. You have to get savvy about states. You have to learn to recognize them and, what does it say? 住于佛平等境界. You have to abide, rest in that place where the Buddhas rest, which is no matter what kind of state comes along, you're okay with it. You don't get angry with the weather, you just know that it's going to be different tomorrow. You don't attach to states. 不要执着境界, you would say. Most important, don't attach to states. Good states, bad states, crazy states, delightful states. Let them all go. There will be another one tomorrow. What is the Buddha's state of impartiality? No state at all. 十方境界皆悉现前. Watch the states of the 10 directions appear before them. That's what bodhisattvas can do, right? Just like, wow, yesterday I thought I was so high, I thought I was so glad that I was learning to meditate. Today, I think this is just stupid. What a waste of time, right? States, they're all states. You still have to get up and go to lunch when the time comes. Okay, what else? Contemplate with wisdom and understand absolutely everything. Wouldn't that be nice? What a great teaching we have that says this is something we can look forward to. We can look forward because we are Buddhist meditators, cultivators of the way. At some point, you'll be able to contemplate everything wisely and understand what's going on. You can look at an acorn and know that under the ground there are oak tree roots that produce that acorn. You can look at an apple and know that that apple came from a tree, half of which is invisible under the ground. Furthermore, hold an apple, and inside it, these little black things that can produce another apple tree and many apples. So wisdom sees one and knows 10. That's our potential of our minds. Okay, now there's one more. Look at this one. This one is really complex. So, what was our lead? But how all bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, can show the formation and decay of worlds in their bodies, and yet have no thought that those worlds in their bodies and their bodies are different. Right? So all these amazing things are happening, and yet they just go, yeah, look at the mind. Everything is made from the mind alone. How marvelous. Don't attach to it. Okay. So now, this particular one is elder liberation state, isn't it? Right? That's what he's been doing. That's how he's been teaching Sudana. And yet, he's like, he didn't say that the worlds in the body and the body are not two? Yeah. He says, how can I possibly know of or teach you about that stuff? It's like, oh, sure you could. But you know that Sudana is not ripe yet. Sudana has a long walk ahead, so I'm going to send you out. You have to move along, good man, he says. How about that? So, okay, so there it is. Isn't this, okay, let's take a look. When you think that the religions that I grew up with or knew about as a kid, there was definitely a vertical power structure. There was the Supreme Being, there were, in this case, angels that carried out the Supreme Being's work. In the Holy Book, there were apostles. There were a few individuals we knew by name, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are supposed to compile the Gospels. And then, later on, you discovered that there were other books that got tossed out. They were considered not quality. The Gospel of Thomas. There's just all kinds of, so it's not a simple story among all the stories about who holds the power, who's got the truth, whose voice is the one to rely upon. But by and large, it was vertical. There was the top, the head, and then on down. And then there was local priests and ministers and pastors and reverends and rabbis and imams whose job it was to interpret the supreme teaching coming down. That's kind of how it was done. And you could pick up the Holy Book and read it yourself. You were encouraged to do that. But there was definitely someone whose job it was to tell you whether you were right or wrong. And the feeling was you're more an observer to the religion than a participant, because the power was in someone else's hands. Now, okay, if that's a typical way in most theistic religions, where you have a theos, a God, in charge, and the teachings are handed down. Right? So let's compare here briefly. We've got a tradition, we have a teaching here that says, hey, student, I was a student like you. I went out, here's what I learned, and I got liberated. My pain and suffering went away. And because you qualify, you made the Bodhi resolve. You're asking questions. You're wondering all about who's got the power. I'm inspired to give you everything that I have and show you how to rely upon it inside yourself. I'm just initiating, I'm just facilitating your discovery of the truth inside you. And you know what? After I've given you everything I have, I'm just one chapter of a much longer story. You got to go get the more truth from someone else. What about that? Something about this approach to who has the religious authority really appeals to me. This idea of the truth is within you, but you still need somebody to show you how. You need a coach. You need a mentor. You need an advisor who can facilitate and foster your own development, but you have to do the work. I can just show you where it is, but then I step aside and boost you down the road towards the next teacher. That's so interesting, right? What a difference. Where's the power? Where's the authority? Look at this setup in terms of questions. Elder Liberation gave Sudana his story, how he discovered what he discovered, and then he demonstrated it. There's no sense of, you can't ask that question. Oh, that's off limits. Oh, asking that is dangerous, right? There's no answers to that. The questions are encouraged. Sudana can't get in line to receive the teachings until he asks questions. How do I walk the Bodhisattva path? How do I cultivate Bodhisattva practices? He really wants to know. And with those questions, the answers come. I have a friend in robes who was raised, I won't name the religion he was raised in, but he was raised in a Western faith tradition. And he was educated in religious schools. And on a wintry Wisconsin night, he caught a ride to the basketball game, he was on the team, with a priest. And this young man was, I guess, maybe 17. He was at the age when his frontal cortex was developing. He had a lot of questions. And he was genuinely asking what questions that, a young man was asking. Who's got the power? And he confessed to the priest that he had had some serious doubts about who was in control, because he was learning in school about all of the injustice in the world and all the suffering. And the priest, who was driving down these icy Wisconsin winter roads with the snow piled up in banks, kind of driving down a corridor with walls of snow and ice from the weeks of snowplows blowing the snow up, and they said, "Son, that's dangerous. You can't ask those questions." And the young man was just at that age. I remember when I was that age. He said, "Yeah, but I have to know. I need to know these answers. If I can't ask you, where will I ask? Where will I get the answers?" And the priest pulled off the road, kicked the young man out of his car, and said, "You walk home and think about what I said," and drove off into the night. So the young man had to walk miles in freezing winter weather. He said that experience turned him away from that faith and made him determined to search deeper. And he wound up a Buddhist monk. He told me that story. We were sharing stories of how we first got interested in Buddhism. And that's an unhappy, it was a negative experience. But it confirmed the necessity for him to find his own answers, to find answers to his questions. So look at that, where Sudana has to ask questions before he gets any teachings. How do I cultivate the Bodhisattva path? How do I practice these Bodhisattva practices? Right? So this curiosity, this need to know, is really essential to both the student, Sudana, and the teacher, elder liberation. Okay, so 2 more paragraphs. Are we ready? Here we go. I'll give you a line, you give it back. 善男子从此难行，至言菩提畔，有一果度，名摩利伽罗。Maybe 摩利伽罗哈，彼有比丘，名曰海床，如意彼问，菩萨云何学菩萨行，修菩萨道。Okay, together, here we go. Good man, a bhikshu named Ocean Banner, lives south of here at the border of Jambudvipa in a country called Milasvarana. Go to him and ask how a bodhisattva studies bodhisattva practices and how he cultivates the bodhisattva path. There it is. That's the moment when he says, that's all I know. Got to go south to learn more. Your learning is not complete. In particular, he hasn't been taught anything about compassion yet. This is all like incredible states of wisdom, states of the Buddha, psychic powers, the ability to travel through the Dharma realm without leaving your seat. These kind of marvelous, inconceivable practices are here, but not Sabe. That's coming up ahead. We'll find out more about that as we progress. Okay, last paragraph to conclude this encounter. Here we go. Ready? 10善财童子 顶礼解脱长者足，右绕观察，承扬赞叹，思维炼养，悲戚流泪。Okay. Then the youth Sudana bowed at the feet of the elder Liberation, and circled him to the right, and gazed at him. He praised and admired him, thought of him with affection, and shed a tear. Okay. So those people who say, you know, oh, that this Avatamsaka Sutra is just philosophy. How could you think that if you read that paragraph? Right? Clearly, there is more. This is a human experience. He's moved to emotion, to tears, by having to leave his teacher when he has just heard marvelous things that he never knew before. So he's getting an answer to his questions, but he's being told there's more. There's more. Okay. Okay. Here we go. I've got a song about somebody else who was asking questions, and at the cost of his life went ahead and asked, at the risk of his life. Right? So this is Sunita. Sunita is the last arhat of the Buddha's teaching career. And what's so interesting about Sunita is that he was an untouchable. He was one of those people who, they're now called Harijans, homeless. It's the lowest of the four castes. He was a beggar. I was born poor in a lowly family. Father disappeared. There was little to eat. He didn't have a father. Father disappeared. My work was degrading. I gathered withered flowers from shrines. In India, then as now, there are lots of puja going on, lots of ceremonies, and people will buy a lot of flowers, buy a lot of food, and after the ceremony, they just leave it. I sold what I could, and I threw the rest away. He is what? Sunita is a garbage man. He's a scavenger. People found me disgusting, and they despised me. They ignored me, or they looked away, just the way so many people do with homeless people. The pain of rejection hurt as much as the hunger, but I lowered my heart, and I bowed every day. Sunita, here in these lines, shows the experience of homeless people who get spat on and cursed and dragged away by the police, right? And they are humans who, for one reason or another, economic situation doesn't pick them up, or they are mentally ill or perhaps addicted, and they get rejected, and that is a kind of pain. Humans are social animals. But what does he do? Sunita has a practice. He bows every day. Here's the difference. Sunita has a faman, a Dharma door. Now, as he's out there in his rounds, the Buddha shows up. I saw the great hero entering the city, greatly awakened, with his monks in line, the most supreme of the Magadhans, where the Buddha came from, walking like a lotus, pure and refined. So Sunita has interesting affinities. He recognizes the Buddha. He knows who the Buddha is. And so he's excited to see him come into the city. Watch what he does. I lost all fear. I set down my pole and baskets. I drew near, and I wanted to bow. And then he, the conqueror of Mara, stopped the line and stood still out of kindness just for me. Okay, what a picture. Now, for scavengers, the fourth caste, if their shadow falls on a Brahmin or a Kshatriya, this saying is that the upper caste can never wash it clean. If a scavenger uses a broom to sweep and then sets it aside, and a Brahmin or a Kshatriya picks up that broom, they're tainted. They can never wash their hands clean. That's how deep is the stigma about these castes. For Sudana to come up and gesture that he would like to bow to the Buddha could be his last move. They could kill him for that. That's a fatal social faux pas. But what does the Buddha do? Not only does he not kick him to the curb, he stands still and accepts his respect. After showing reverence at the foot of the teacher, I stood to one side. He is emboldened, and he says, "Great sage, supreme one among all beings, could I take refuge? Could I become a monk?" He says, right? The Buddha, looking at his yin yuan, his chen yin ho, his causes and conditions, raises a hand and says, "Ehi bhikkhu, come, monk." That was my ordination. I crossed over, and my new life began. Now, there is a teaching that says when the Buddha is in the world, this is the proper Dharma age. When he accepts someone into the Sangha, their hair falls out spontaneously and their robe appears on their bodies. So, okay, now, if this were a movie, we would now shift scenes. We're now out in the mountains, here in the Australian hinterland in the bush, because Sunita is cultivating. Now, I live alone here in the mountains. I never tire as I cultivate the way, following my teacher's words just as he taught me, with one mind, by night and by day. Okay, now this is the moment when he wakes up. As the sun goes down, I entered samadhi. I saw my past lives. I got my heavenly eye. Just before dawn, I broke through the mass of darkness. To the state of the deathless, I did certify. Okay, this is realizing nirvana. Oh, the night was ending and the sun was returning. Indra and Brahma paid their respects to me. With their palms together, shining light, the way gods do, with eloquence, they said these words to me. Now look at the irony. These are the chiefs among gods paying their respects with their palms together to a scavenger, a former untouchable. And they say to him, "Homage to you, thoroughbred of humans. Homage to you, human supreme. Your afflictions have ended. All your suffering is over. You, dear sir, are worthy of offerings." Okay. Now, this concludes with, we'll see. I'll show you what I think is going on here. Upon seeing me venerated by the Devas, the teacher, the Buddha, smiled, and he proclaimed, through austerity, celibacy, restraint, and self-control, one becomes a Brahman. He is a Brahman supreme. I think this is a gentle dig at the caste system, saying you become a real Brahman through austerity, celibacy, restraint, and self-control, and the gods come and praise you. He's a Brahman supreme. Never mind that he was an outcast, right? So, now this is the Therigatha. This is the oldest collection of poetry in the world. It's from the Buddha's own monks. There is a Therigatha, Songs of the Buddhist Nuns, 2,500 years, and you can see how personal this is, how effective. I was born poor in a lowly family. Father disappeared, there was little to eat. My work was degrading. I gathered withered flowers from the shrine, sold what I could, and threw the rest away. People found me disgusting, and they despised me. They just ignored me, or they looked away. The pain of rejection hurt as much as the hunger, but I lowered my heart and I bowed every day. And I saw the great hero entering the city, greatly awakened with his monks in line. The most supreme of the Magadans, walking like a lotus, pure and refined. Well, I lost all fear. I set down my pole and baskets. I drew near, and I wanted to bow. And then he, the conqueror of Mara, stopped the line. He stood still out of kindness just for me. After showing reverence at the feet of the teacher, I stood to one side and I said these words: O great sage supreme, among all beings may I take refuge and leave home with you. The compassionate teacher raised one hand in a blessing with the sound of kindness for all the world. He said, "Come, monk," that was my ordination. I crossed over and my new life began. Now I live alone here in the mountains. I never tire as I cultivate the way, following my teacher's words just as he taught me, with one mind by night and by day. As the sun went down, I entered Samadhi. I saw my past lives, I got my heavenly eye. Then just before dawn I broke through the mass of darkness to the state of the deathless. I did certify. Oh, the night was ending and the sun was returning. Indra and Brahma paid their respects to me. With their palms together, shining light, the way gods do with eloquence, they said these words to me: Homage to you, thoroughbred of humans. Homage to you, human supreme. Your afflictions have ended, all your suffering is over. You, dear sir, are worthy of offering. Upon seeing me venerated by the devas, the teacher smiled proclaim through austerity, celibacy, restraint, and self-control, one becomes a Brahman. He is a Brahman supreme. So look at Sunita, who was able to do that and then write about it. That poem is pretty much a direct translation of the Therigatha original verse from 2,500 years ago. Okay, hey, we are at that point called shop talk, Dharma shop talk. Let's look at any questions that might have been set out here, encouraging folks to send in your questions. Okay, is the practice of Buddha recitation, nianfo, a difficult and time-consuming process in which the mind gradually becomes calm and settled? I noticed that after reciting the Buddha's name for a long time, although I know to bring the mind back wherever it wanders outward, over time the recitation seems to lose its effectiveness. Sometimes I continue to recite, yet it feels as if I were in a dream, lacking clarity and self-awareness. Does this indicate a retreat in my practice, or is it a natural stage in the process of cultivation? Okay, let me translate for that one. 就对于念佛念佛法门是一种很困难和且冒失 is that 耗时浪费耗时的修行方法吗？在这个过程中心是否会慢慢地变得平静和安定？我注意到在长时间在那念佛之后，虽然我知道当心向外散乱的时候要将其收回，但随着时间的推移 ，OK， 念佛好像慢慢地失去了它的效力。有的时候我仍在继续念佛，却感觉到仿佛只身梦中，就是说只身梦中缺乏清明和自觉。这是不是意味着 let's see 这是否意味着我的修行出现的退转，还是就说就是修行过程中的自然的一个阶段？第二 Number two, your second choice, it's a natural process. Because, why? The fact that you notice what state your mind is in on a particular day is a result of your having recited ordinarily. If you had never recited the Buddha's name, you wouldn't have that perspective, the ability to step aside slightly and recognize what state your mind is in. Most folks, and we, before we begin to cultivate, our minds are just like an ocean. It's boundlessly containing everything and moving, and we're just going through it. Only after you start a practice, this one is nianfo, reciting the Buddha's name, but it can be other practices. Only after you apply a Dharma practice do you get any line to measure from? Do you get any clarity whatsoever by which you can say, wow, it used to be clear, now it's kind of fuzzy? That's progress all by itself. So be content with the progress you have and understand that there's multiple things happening. On one hand, sure, Master Hua would say the Buddha's name is like what they call a water-clearing pearl, 净水珠, that when you drop a certain pearl into the water, all of the impurities in the water drop to the bottom. And that the Buddha's name dropped into an impure mind brings all the impurities in the mind to the bottom. But you have to be really patient and you have to recite a lot. So that's one thing that's going on, is the effect on your everyday state of mind. There's another thing going on with the Buddha's name, particularly Amitabha, which is with every single recitation, Namo Amitofo, there is a corresponding response in the Pure Land. That's the way Amitabha set it up. By reciting his name in this world, we are growing a lotus flower in another world. And the more we recite, the more mature and healthy and sublime is the lotus flower. So don't use an everyday 24 hours, sleeping 8 hours, reciting sometimes when you remember while sitting in the car in a traffic jam. Don't use that mind, that everyday mind that is saying, oh, I feel kind of fuzzy today. Maybe it doesn't work. That's the wrong mind to use. Look long and understand that every time you say Namo Amitofo, you are giving your mind a safe, stable, clear, solid foundation from which other situations that arise in the world just become unimportant because you know your mind, and that's the Namo Amitofo. The clarity of reciting the Buddha's name, even though from day to day you may say, well, I wasn't very clear today. Understand what's in the mind. Emotions are in the mind. Attachments are in the mind. Opinions are in the mind. Reactions to the world around you are in the mind. Everything is floating around inside there, and you've got one, Namo Amitofo, this water-clearing pearl. So it's a big job to make your mind peaceful and calm. And over time, this is exactly the way to do it. Don't doubt the method because of the impurity in the mind, right? That ignorance is, how many lifetimes have we been building ignorance compared to how long we've been reciting the Buddha's name? Okay, I encourage you to continue. This is a natural process. Okay, after long periods of reciting the Buddha's name, the mind becomes tranquil. I can hear the sound of recitation. However, I found it difficult to tell whether that sound is real or merely created by the mind. How can I distinguish between the real sound and the imagined one? I don't know what the sound of recitation is that you're referring to. You can still hear the sound after. Why do you want to have a weird state? That's a weird state, and because you're clinging to it, you created doubts. Oh, is it a good state? I'm not hearing it anymore. Uh-oh. You have set fire to your own tail, and now you're wondering why it feels so hot. So you've created a problem for yourself. To hear the sound of recitation after you've stopped reciting, that's called a state you've attached to something. Let it go. Let it go. Don't seek for specialness. It will turn around and bite you. And then why? Because as soon as you think something you should have is gone, then you worry about it. Oh no, I've lost my special state. That's an affliction, right? So let the sound be natural. Okay. 就说在长时间念佛之后，心变得宁静，我仍能听到念佛的声音。谁要不念再听？不要了，不必了，自己给自己立一个障碍物。然而，我发现很难分辨那个声音是真实存在的，不是，还是有心是个幻想。你认识是个幻想，为什么要执着一个幻想嘛？不要了，那就是给自己打个嘴巴了啊，不必了。Okay, all right. Let's see. After taking refuge in the three jewels, can I bow to the heaven and earth, four heavenly kings, ancestors? If bowing affects the integrity of the refuge vows, how do you proceed? You can bow. When you could say bow to them. You have in front of you the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, and that's correct. But to say as a result you don't want to bow anymore to anybody else, not necessary. So one way to think about it is if you, let's say, for example, you want to put you want to get some jewelry, for example. So you could take some money and you could buy diamonds, or you could take the same amount of money and you could buy an equivalent amount of rhinestones, or quartz out of the earth. Of course, you're going to want the diamonds, but quartz and rhinestones have a value. It's just you can understand that the Buddha is your own mind. So when you bow to the Buddha, your Master Hua told me in 3 Steps on bow to an empty space Buddha, bow to a Dharma realm Buddha. So that's the ultimate refuge. 4 heavenly kings, the 4 kings of heaven, that is, heaven and earth, your ancestors, they certainly have a place in our lives. It's not the case that you only talk to one person because that's the important person. You can talk to everyone, but don't lose the direction of your refuge. Where is your true refuge? Keep that direction going and then continue to bow. There's no harm. If you said, should I go get baptized after taking refuge, baptized in the Christian church, I would say that's crossing a line that's going to wind up confusing you. You certainly can do anything you want in terms of religion. No one is going to punish you, but you want to be clear about your priorities. And then go ahead and bow. Look at how bodhisattvas use their division bodies. We just saw the Avatamsaka bodhisattva is able to put out division bodies to teach living beings how to cultivate. So if the division bodies, sometimes there are stories told about how division bodies of bodhisattvas can go out and do things that will surprise you in order to get close to living beings, right? So I don't want to specify, but sure, no problem. But keep your priority. Understand where the sun, where the North Star is in the sky. So let's see if I can understand the question in Chinese. Let's see. 皈依三宝之后，是否可以向天地叩头、四天王叩头、祖先叩头？那为什么不要呢？你不是皈依他们，你恭敬天地，恭敬天王，四天王，恭敬祖先，可以叩头。你不皈依他们就一样了啊！你的前后还清楚，你的方向还清楚，那没问题了。不是说你知道这个鹈鹕是最好的味道，所以其他的都不喝牛奶，因为鹈鹕是最圣的一个味道吗？不会。如叩头对皈依体有影响，应如何做？听不懂，看不懂。Okay, so I think I'm clear. All right, let's see here. In the Avatamsaka Sutra, the phrase "not taught by others" appears many times. What is the true meaning of the phrase? Okay, this is a really interesting question. So this is I've heard various explanations of this. So you say he awoke on his own and was not taught by others. On one hand, you could say in a world of what's called a plural world, a world of plurality where there's many religions like India, multiple faith options, it means you followed the Dharma and not taught by other religions. That's one. Another way to say is we've heard the Buddha in the Diamond Sutra, in the Vajra Sutra, he says, I never said a word. All the Dharma that I spoke, I never said a word. And you go, what? I just read the Diamond Sutra. There's lots of words there, World Honored One. Bhagavan, what do you mean, right? The Buddha is talking about prajna paramita, where there is no trace, there's no attachment to the words he speaks. It's like a raft You get across the sea of suffering, you leave the boat behind. You understand the Dharma, you leave the words behind. Similar here. You're enlightened through lifetimes of cultivation. You wake up after great effort. And Sudana is bowing to each one of 53 teachers. Well, Sudana is taught by others, right? Until the moment he wakes up, and then the awakening happens because he removed the coverings on his own mind. The final teaching came from his own effort, not from others. So, what do they say? 师父领进门，修行在个人, right? The teacher brings you to the gate, but we enter by ourselves, right? So who's the teacher? The teacher's a coach. He shows you how to make the plays. He shows you how to carry the ball. He shows you how to cooperate with your team members. Shows you how to learn the rules of the game. But the coach does not set foot on the field. You have to do that. You have to put the plays in motion. So that's what it means. Not taught by others, not enlightened through others' effort. That's the way we interpret it. And it also depends on the context. Sometimes it also means Buddhism, not other religions in India at the time, or in the West now. 华严经里面多次出现不有他教这句话，这个词语就真正含义是什么？意思是就说师父领进门，修行在个人，他们会告诉你怎么用功，可是呢，到时候要身体力行，要自己去做，才能真正开悟。他们不能替你来开悟，是这个意思。Okay, great. These are really good questions. Super. The quality of our questions has improved a lot. Well done. Okay, there we go. All right, good. Thanks for those questions. Appreciate that. We came up with 2 terms for our. We didn't finish. We have one more story before, one more paragraph before elder liberation is actually done. Then we're going to review his poem. Remember his poem that we read at the beginning? Really wonderful poem. We came up with 2 terms, adornments and states. There's another one coming up, which is going to be zizai. We'll get to that in a minute. And we'll get to that in a week, that is to say. Okay, thank you all for spending part of your afternoon with me. This is such a privilege for me to be able to share with everybody. Appreciate very much the hard work of all the volunteers getting this lecture out into the world in various languages, Chinese, Vietnamese, technology, and I'm thrilled to be able to investigate the Avatamsaka with all of you. Here's our dedication. Every Sunday night in the US and every Monday noon here in Australia and Asia, I explain the 10 Transferences chapter. It's available on Zoom, it's available on YouTube, and we're at the 9th transference. Whoa, the Bodhisattva at the 9th transference has got some incredible vows that he makes. And every week we just go through them. Just enjoy the heart of the real heart of the Bodhisattva. So please do join. And we also, at the end of the lecture, tell more stories about Xuanzang Fa-shi. He's a couple weeks from Nalanda. He is traveling through the Buddha's holy land, Kapilavastu, where the Buddha grew up, Sravasti, and so the stories that we read about the pilgrim in the Tang Dynasty, Master Xuanzang, are just so inspiring. So please do join. Same time, 7:30 in California on Sunday night, 12:30 here in Asia. Okay, here we go. Let's make a wish like an Avatamsaka Bodhisattva. May every living be our minds as one and radiant with light, share fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see, our hands and hearts can find in giving unity. May our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. And before we end, we're going to bow to Guanyin Bodhisattva. Welcome to join me if you care to. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. That's going to do it for us for today. See you all next week. Amitofo, everybody. Bye now.
一个十法师。
阿弥陀佛。